Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition. He is Zach Lyons. I am Braden Gall. Get into the comments section, folks. If you got questions, we would love to hear from you guys. Of course, this show brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group, two of our great, amazing, local, and awesome sponsors. Zach, good afternoon, sir. How are we doing today?
Good afternoon. Basically, this week has flown by compared to the last weekend.
You ever have one of those weeks where you have like so much shit you've got to do for like the household that's not like work related, and like it's just big, overwhelming stuff, and then you feel like you kind of put the ball in motion, you get to where you need to be on everything, and then your wife goes like, "Hey, how's all that stuff going?" You're like, "I got it taken care of," and then it's like Friday.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it feels like.
That's exactly what it is. So it's going to be a great show today. Look, Zach has thoughts on entertainment districts, red light districts. Who knows? Entertainment districts later on in the show we'll discuss, of course.
I mean, massive news. I mean, you kind of like act like this isn't really big news for college football and stuff. You kind of like just dismissing it, and you're just like, "Oh, I'll just let you handle that segment." And I'm thinking, this is right up your alley. This is college football stuff.
No, I have a lot of things to say about it. I have many things to say. We will discuss, and you will not be alone in that conversation. But entertainment districts on the show today. Of course, there was a great clip that you brought to my attention from Alex Smith on his radio show, former quarterback, of course, now with Sirius XM. And let's be quiet around. Do we have to be quiet, Donnie, with the sleeping baby, or are we good to just like yell F words at each other? I mean, I know there's another podcast called F words, but like, I just want to be respectful of the sleeping child. You brought
shit. If you're bringing your child, you have to be respectful of me.
Fair enough. I could don't take your kid to a nice restaurant. That's a baby.
Nice restaurant, airplanes, basically anywhere where there's more than 5 people. Don't bring your kids.
Actually, here you go. Real tired of being nice. That's exactly that's the motto on the show. All right. So defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL cannot develop quarterbacks, according to Alex Smith. That's not exactly what he said, but it's kind of what he said. Obviously, there's a defensive-minded head coach here in town. Is it even true? Zach has thoughts. Zach has stats. Zach has data. I have some opinions as well, so we'll get into that. I had Mel Kiper on Lamestream Sports this week. That'll be out on Friday. Make sure you check that out. 40-plus minutes of him talking about the evaluation process, the grading process, getting information from former GMs, current GMs, and how does that affect the grading process. A lot of conversation about Will Levis, and we're going to play you a clip on why he was so high on Will Levis and maybe some other guys were not, and where the disconnect was, so that people can maybe understand that a little bit. And frankly, it raises a question about the evaluation process that I find pretty interesting about injuries. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. Obviously, we had some veterans, quote-unquote veterans, Zach, talk for the Tennessee Titans. Al-Shaair, Brunskill, Treylon Burks, and namely on Tuesday. So we'll get into what they had to say as well. But otherwise, get into the comment section, rate, review, subscribe. Go to Stack in the Inbox, subscribe to Stack in the Inbox, listen to F Words Pod. You got Mike Herndon, you got all the other great shows from the 440 Sports Network, but make sure you are going in to Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, sister store Bluegrass in Hendersonville. Sign up for the in crowd and just watch the emails roll in with like really cool opportunities, VIP stuff, tastings, events, and we have one very cool giveaway coming very, very soon. Actually, it's in the next few weeks. We're gonna have to roll that. We're gonna have to roll that out soon.
Like, you better go join now, because it's like gonna come at June, and then you're gonna be behind everybody else that's already subscribed to the in crowd. So don't fall behind. Go join the in crowd.
Let me give you some hints real fast. Just some general hints. It involves not driving, but leaving town. Someone else will drive you. It involves brown water, and then it involves them bringing you back.
You're going to Tennessee's first outhouse.
They do sell jackets, Sinkers Beverages. That's true. Kingston Group, of course, BuildKG.com, Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. You guys know the drill. Do not make any decisions about your house. Just call them. Just have a conversation with them. They will help you make big decisions. My wife wants to finish a half wall upstairs, with like a full wall, so that the kids' movies, we can't hear them downstairs when we're watching Succession.
Contractors not finish the job?
No, we intentionally made it a half wall.
Why?
It's one of those like loft style deals.
Oh, and, you guys really didn't think that one through.
Maybe not, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't get into my marriage this early in the show. Thank you. we all,
I mean,
we
if
all have secrets,
you're,
Zach.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay. All right. We are 5 minutes into the show. Buck's mom's first reference. It's
D Good is all
little
about
slow.
Buck's mom. I mean, he's all about it.
Little slow today on the show there, D Good. Come on. 522. I had the under
Yeah.
on Buck's mom being mentioned in the comments. No, you guys know the drill. Get into the comments if you have any questions. So I don't know what you took away, and I know you and Mike talked a lot about a lot of the different rookies and non-rookies talking through the last couple of days of press availability. I just had two kind of major takeaways, and then I can kind of let you run with it if you want. I thought number one, Treylon Burks is clearly in a different headspace from a commitment standpoint, understanding what he needs to be a professional athlete. Didn't really leave town much at all. Has been here working with the strength and conditioning staff, and I think that's he just sounded like a guy like ready to go. And maybe doesn't mean he's going to be great. Doesn't mean he's going to avoid injury, but it looks like much like Roger McCreary did and Chig a couple of weeks ago. It sounds like these guys have kind of figured, okay, there's a different thing we got to do here entering camp to be ready to go physically. And I think that's a really great sign considering all the garbage bullshit conversation we had this time last year with Treylon Burks. So that's number one.
Which is a little bit, falls at his feet pretty much for kind of lollygagging throughout the NFL offseason process. Like, if I was an agent, and maybe his agent did this, but if I was an agent, I'd be like, dude, you have to take care of your body and get ready for them. Like that. In fact, they do a rookie symposium after the draft. They should really do a rookie symposium like right after the Super Bowl where all the NFL draft rookies can come if they want, or you give out a handful of the first rounder, second round, third round grades and teach them, like have a week-long seminar, teach them financial responsibility, teach them what's coming down the pipeline with all their stuff, and also teach them how to take care of their body between now and then. Because how many times have we seen people that are fast in college go to the combine, look out of shape, and then come to camp and look out of shape? It's not just specifically Treylon Burks, but it happens everywhere. And it's like you get to a certain point in college when you're so much better than everyone else, and you probably you only have to put in half the work in college, but the NFL is different. It is the cream of the crop of college. It is not, playing Arkansas, Lafayette Bluff or whatever, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, wherever it's at.
Mel Kiper refers to them multiple times as AOGs, another occupation guy. In college, Treylon Burks went up against a bunch of DBs that were AOGs, another occupation guy,
right?
Which is not a professional athlete. And here's the thing: there's two things. Number one, that's very self-explanatory. It's very obvious stuff that's how this process works. And number two, that means we all need to take a deep breath when Jalen Duncan is tired in OTAs. Okay, again, I'm not even picking on Jalen Duncan specifically. I'm just saying, like, when this inevitably will take place over the course of the next month and a half, where we're going to have a conversation about how someone just doesn't look like a professional yet, or just doesn't feel like they're getting in as fast as they should. It's because they're a child going into a grown-ass man's professional sports league, and it takes some time to get up to speed. So.
And let's be very clear, just because you brought up Jalen Duncan, he's a 300-something pound man that has been adept at Maryland weather in the summers, which is probably super beautiful wherever he's at.
Yeah, probably.
And
is.
He's coming down here to freaking Tennessee, which is like a bowl of just humidity and just sweaty assholes. Like it is the sweaty asshole. Nashville is the sweaty asshole of Tennessee.
I think asshole might be
constantly everywhere.
The asshole part of that analogy, the most illustrative part of the analogy, not actually. I think that's too nice to Tennessee. I think it's the taint. It's actually the part between the scrotal region and the asshole region.
You walk outside on some days, you're just sweating already. Yeah, so I can't imagine being 300-something pounds.
It is golf shirt, dry fit weather from here until probably October, when that one weekend hits and it smells like football on Saturday morning.
But the good news about this all situations that, unlike previous draft classes, the majority of last year's draft class who seems to be taken to the Vrabel lifestyle is actually still on the team. So, you can actually listen to Treylon Burks, Chigakonkwo, Roger McCreary, they can kind of impart some wisdom and ways. And, that's up to – it's going to be tough for some people to adjust. Probably won't be tough for Will Levis, most likely, with his experience at Kentucky. But at least this group, based on rookie minicamp reports and based on what we've heard from them out of their mouths this rookie class, it seems like they're kind of taken to the adjustment a little bit quicker than Treylon Burks is. But the good news is that Treylon Burks has taken it to another level this offseason.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like Roger McCreary, just like Chigakonkwo. That's what you want to see from your draft class.
Well, and ironically, Treylon Burks, one of the few guys that should be accustomed to the weather from where he's from prior to going to Arkansas. Tajay Spears, by the way, Louisiana doesn't get any more humid than that. So, he should be totally fine from a conditioning standpoint. I just think it's worth noticing and mentioning. It's like, hey, we did this last year. We do it every year. It takes time for the transition to take place. Sure, the 11th overall pick playing at a position like guard should be able to contribute early for the Tennessee Titans in the NFL, Peter Skoronski. It doesn't mean he's not going to have moments where he looks like a freaking rookie. So, even in camp, we just got to be aware of that. But it does lead us right into the other part that I thought was interesting from all kind of the theme that ran through all these guys, Azeez Al-Shaair, Daniel Brunskill, Treylon Burks, etc. And it's something that I noticed last year when I talked to guys that were first-year players that were veterans. I talked to Austin Hooper about this last year. Guys that come in and notice the difference of the culture and what Tennessee Titans football is kind of all about. We know Vrabel's talked extensively about calluses. You talked about it on the pod. Kaharski talked about it on his show. We know that they have had massive injuries the last 2 years. But to hear guys come in, Sean Bunting comes in and says, this is just different than anywhere else I've been. Al-Shaair said the same thing. Brunskill says the same thing. It's all about being physical, but in a smart way. And so it doesn't feel like they've changed a whole lot, but maybe they're changing some tactics, not really their strategies. What did you make of the through line that is, we know this culture is different. We know there's a culture of accountability. If you just don't do your job, you're fucking out of here. But what did you make of the training and pushing the sleds and the intensity and the conditioning and the callus and the injury dynamic? What did you make of all that?
It's hard to form a well-informed takeaway from it. But I do find it interesting that Azeez Al-Shaair said, and I believe it was him, it could have been Sean Murphy, but I believe it was Azeez, said that it seemed like they handed the keys to the strength and conditioning staff and said, here you go, when it comes to this practice. And it seems to me that the practice is being designed by the strength and conditioning team, which we have to keep in mind. There is an injury algorithm somewhere in this area of all this. There is the data that Mike Vrabel mentioned at the end of season presser where he talks about, this is what our graphs show. These are the rest days. This is what the data shows us about going hard at practice. And this seems like a different style of practice, but I don't know how it's technically easier on the body. So that's where I struggle is it seems like this is a lot harder than other draft classes.
Hey, Huxley. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, it's Huxley and Havana. It seems weird compared to previous year's practices they say are really hard, right? They're super hard. But how is this not just as hard or harder? Is it just a different kind of hard, which is it? I guess what it comes down to is these are just workouts, right? So these are just high intensity,
right?
Going to a Iron Tribe workout, and there you go, and then there's your recovery. I guess. That's what I guess it is.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a personal trainer. I've been around a bunch of them, and I know just from aging myself. Low impact stuff is incredibly important as you get older. That's just, and I'm just going to use this as a non-expert sort of term here, right? You can be as calloused and as tough and as ground into shape as possible without doing these things that put incredible stress on specific body parts, right? You can still be calloused and tough and in perfect shape without doing these very specific exercises that maybe I would argue when I played football in the 90s. The weights and the training that we did in the 90s was so different than just the weights and the training that people were doing in 2010. which I'm assuming is very different than the way that Derrick Henry trains in sand and on hills in 2020. And so it just, we keep evolving on this. And I think the idea is hopefully.
That's a good point. We talk about these videos with the sleds and how it's different. And Derrick Henry, year after year, does all these different kinds of exercises that look like they would kill a mere mortal. And he has really one major injury that has nothing to do with anything as far as working out. And
yeah, like strengthening all the little tendons in the knees and the shoulders.
Treylon Burks about too, right? I mean, did Treylon Burks specifically mention there's stuff that I'm doing with the strength and conditioning staff? Right. Maybe this has been the issue with the strength and conditioning staff. Isn't that the people are in place, the data is in place, that people are actually using them?
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's like, again, constantly evolving. And all those workout videos that Derek does where people are going crazy and they're all viral, if you notice about almost all of them, very few of them have high impact stuff. A lot of it's about flexibility and it's about agility and it's about strengthening tendons and all these other things. It's not like I'm just going to fire off and hit a pad or do clean power cleans and just bench press. Like, it's not the way it used to be 20 years ago. So it's a holistic, entire tendon, every body part. I don't. We're just not going to know.
Roger McCreary stayed here. We know that I think Chig said he stayed here. We know that Treylon Burks stayed here. Maybe that's the important thing. If you cannot be trusted out on your own, like Derrick Henry is obvious, and Kevin Byard are two obviously different breeds, but they're not just here during the OTAs, Treylon Burks and all of them. They've been here all summer long, working with nutritionists, working with all off season long, working with nutritionists, working with strength and conditioning staff. And maybe that's been the missing key ingredient for a much maligned part of the NFL or part of the Titans front office staff is the strength and conditioning squad.
And it does not sound like, and I thought this was interesting from the newcomers, all three of them basically saying, this ain't the way we do it. This is much harder. This is much more of stuff. And again, doesn't necessarily mean more physical. It's just more. And I don't think that's any different than the way Mike Vrabel has run a football program, a football team, since the first day he stepped into St. Thomas Sports Park. And he's going to have a physical football team that is going to play a physical brand of ball, no matter how injured they are or not. I guess he's just trying to adapt to that style to better prepare his team for that, I guess.
Well,
and the other guys aren't doing it.
Oh, I think it's safe to assume that the 49ers and the Buccaneers aren't doing it, but other teams are, because this is basically the first time we've ever heard of any free agent talk like this and reference the practices being hard, or we don't do that there. I've never done this before. And so either this is an entirely new concept of what they did this past Monday with the sleds and everything, or whatever else was evolved around other days that we're not privy to, or it's everybody else came from a team that did something similar. So, like, Bud Dupree, he came from the Steelers. Maybe the Steelers do something similar to Mike Vrabel, whereas the Buccaneers don't and the San Francisco 49ers don't. It's very interesting to see how the injuries play out and if this actually works.
That's all that matters, is if they have another season like the last two with more injuries, then it's on Vrabel. Like, it's something that Vrabel is instituting at that point, right? Like, I'm not saying that it's not on the players, it's not fluke occurrences. Like, again, Derrick Henry's foot is not because he worked out too much. Maybe it's because he got too many carries, because the more carries you get, the more chance your injury goes up, just statistically. But, like, again, at some point, Vrabel does have to say, like, all right, we're the most injured team in the history of the NFL 3 years in a row. I need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're there yet. I think one is pretty fluky. I think two is still kind of fluky. They've jettisoned a lot of those players. Let's find out if it's just the players and some fluke, and then we'll go on from there. But it's kind of like Levis. We've learned everything we can about this issue. They're trying some new stuff. We got to wait till the games happen before we can kind of comment any further. Okay.
Or even practices, see how people last in practices this summer.
All right, so we're going to hear from Mel Kiper here in just a second, but let's tell everybody about the Kingston Group and Sinkers, of course. The Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Custom home build, buying a house, selling a house. Yes, I know interest rates are off the charts right now, but if you're going to do any of that, if you're going to do an addition to a home, if you're buying a house and then renovating it, any of the things that you just cannot trust a small-time general contractor to do, which is like all of them in Nashville. I'm sure there's some good ones, but mostly, I don't know. Don't trust them. Kingston Group, buildkg.com, have a conversation with them. They will make sure that you are in the right direction if they're not going to help you. If they can't help you, they'll make sure you get the right people to do the job for you. But if you're trying to do something big for your house, just keep that name in the back of your head. Kingston Group, just always remember it. Buildkg.com. Sinkers Beverages, of course, the 2022 Liquor Store of the Year in Nashville, Tennessee by the Nashville Scene. Uber Eats. Search Sinkers Beverages. Zach, they will deliver the booze directly to your house.
Hey, they drive so you can drink.
I think that was the best job I have done of setting you up in a long time. I think I've screwed that up so many times. I think I've screwed that up so many times I finally got it right. No, they'll deliver the booze right to your house. Great selection of wine, great selection. Huge beer cooler. Like one of the best beer coolers in town. And trust me, I've been into a lot of beer coolers. This is one of the best beer coolers in town. Great bourbon selection, huge brown water wall if you want to go check that out. Great wine, great staff that'll help you out. Sign up for the in-crowd, VIP allocations, specific emails tailored directly to your tastes, great showroom, private tastings, and some cool prizes coming. So Sinkers and the Kingston Group, make sure you check those guys out. Okay. Injuries and evaluation. Why was Will Levis evaluated the way he was by different people so drastically? Well, and Mel Kiper, of course, was one of the guys who was very, very high on Will Levis. At one point, Zach, I did a show with him probably in November or December, and I remember telling you this, I think. Like, I asked Mel Kiper this weekend on the air, who's changed his opinion the most this season? And he was like, I think Will Levis is number one on my board. So he evaluated him very differently than everybody else. This is what he had to say when I asked him to explain those differences. This was what Mel Kiper had to say.
A defend against, I thought, unfair criticism. I guess you could say everything's fair in this business. You can look at play, but I think unfair by that I mean when you're hurt and you're beat up like he was. That would be like if I came on here with a sore throat and I'm going to struggle to talk to you guys. Mel Kiper was a little off his game today. Well, I guess so. I got 102 fever and I got a strep throat. I'm gutting it out here, guys, doing the best I can, right? So when you are a quarterback and you're beat up from head to toe, and the fact that you could move so well 2 years ago when you were healthy, but this year you can't move, so you're no threat to a defense running. You're no threat doing anything with your legs because your foot, your toe is so bad. Your offensive line is awful. Your receivers aren't running the right routes. All these things are factoring in. So you got to look at that. Well, some chose not to. And that's their prerogative. I thought it was unfair, but that's their prerogative to evaluate Will Levis and say, okay, he turned the ball over too much. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. He didn't look as good as he did 2 years ago. Well, there was a reason, because he was beat up from head to toe. So, and he didn't have the players around him he did, like Wan'Dale Robinson and Darian Kennard and Luke Fortner. So there was a lot of reasons. So if you want to factor in those reasons and give him kind of a pass, then you do what I did. If you don't, and you want to be strict to say, hey, he's out there playing, he made some mistakes you can't make. I don't care if you're hurt. You can't be fumbling the ball away in the final couple minutes of the Ole Miss game. I understand that. And there's no perfect formula to evaluate. There'll be a good learning situation with Will Levis moving forward for people. In terms of Will, it was a tough evaluation because you didn't see the same quarterback this year as you did in 2021 because he was hurt. 2022 beat up. He had 9 rushing touchdowns 2 years ago. He had 0 over the last 8 games when he was hurt and couldn't move. Against Tennessee, if you look at the tape, there were miles in front of him to run. And he just stood there and tried to find a receiver because I can't move. I'm not getting it. By the time I get 5 yards, somebody's going to close and hit me anyway. So I just can't move anymore. So I'm sure it frustrated Will as well. But he got it out. He didn't quit on this team. He played through it.
There you go, Mel Kiper on the evaluation. He went on to say a few other things about where he could have gone in the draft. Colts, Ravens, we could touch on that. He compared him to Josh Allen a couple of different ways, and I'll explain that. The full interview, of course, will be out on Lamestream Sports, everywhere you get your podcasts on Friday. Zach, I'll let you go first. Are you one of the guys that sides with the McShay camp and maybe the other guys that says, look, you're out there, you're injured, doesn't matter, or the fact that you got injured as part of the evaluation? Or do you err a little bit more on the Mel Kiper side and say, look, this is a context that's important here. I'm not going to knock him for that.
Well, not to be, I just got sneezed on. Not to be Will Levis specific, but I do take in context in my evaluation. The problem is with Will Levis specifically, is that I didn't find any of the 2021 tape to be some great white hope. Like I just didn't. I was unimpressed with the 2021 tape of Will Levis. Now, the problem is that he comes back, unlike Anthony Richardson, because I said Anthony Richardson should go back to college, right? He gets his first year starting, and technically your second year, you should progress and you should improve. And yes, the injuries and the context surrounding it were bad. But let's slow down a little bit on acting like Wan'Dale Robinson is some great.
Don't you talk about my guy. Don't you talk about my guy.
The way that people talk about Wan'Dale Robinson and his importance to the Kentucky offense is insane to me. And the offensive line is kind of like over the course of both seasons, it's kind of just bad regardless. Now, if you got a new OC in your head telling you not to do things or not doing things to help you as a quarterback and beat these deficiencies that you obviously have, then that falls onto the offensive coordinator, not necessarily Will Levis. The problem was that just the 2021 tape, when everything was just all hunky-dory in Bluegrass City, it just wasn't there for me.
When he had 33 touchdowns and they won 10 games and he was very good. Listen, if you don't like the 2021 tape, not just you, but like anybody, I think that's totally fair. Like I don't see X, Y, and Z from Will Levis. I think that's totally fair. There's not really a whole lot we can do to kind of relitigate the evaluation of him. I am sort of curious because I agree that like Wan'Dale Robinson and a couple of offensive linemen in itself is not a huge deal. The coordinator, maybe a bigger deal, but in and of itself, not a huge deal. The injury to a very specific part of his body that changed a very specific part of his game, not that huge shouldn't change your evaluation. But when taken all together, I think that can paint a very different picture, which I think I've been trying to tell Tennessee Volunteers fans specifically. This is why he didn't look very good for the last 2/3 of the season last year. Now, I think what Mel does a great job of explaining on that show that you didn't hear there is that you have to stick to what you trust. And if Zach, you see something, or Stoney's already said, listen, I err on the side of the tape just isn't that good. If you don't stick to your own eyes and trust what you see. And I think that's where I think Mel is saying, look, I saw this from him here. Now I'm using this context to say, I'm not sure this is really him. I think this is really him. 2021 is really him. 2022 is not because of X, Y, and Z reasons. I'm okay with that. I also think that if a player plays a certain style of game and gets hurt all the time, that's important context too. Like that, like you can't just take that away from Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or whoever. If a player just like KJ Jefferson runs through brick walls at the end of plays, that's a part of his evaluation process, and it's why he got hurt twice last year. So eventually eventually the injury is the context at the same time, right? Like, so I don't know. I thought that was interesting. He also went on to say he compared him to Josh Allen and said, look, very similar things. Not that he's going to be Josh Allen, but the two things that we said about Josh Allen were inaccurate, makes some bad decisions, and he got hurt a couple of times and the team lost games. As soon as he was off the team, they lost games. And Kiper went on to say, look, as soon as Levis was off the field, they got beat by bad teams and they got blown out. He's a difference maker for the team that led them to some victories despite some of the problems. Those are some positives for him. But the really interesting one, and I tweeted out the link to this on my account or at 440 Sports, was that because he fell, it doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't graded out highly by most teams.
Which is what we have said.
Right, exactly. Because you said it at the very beginning, like the Titans clearly graded him as a mid to high first-round draft pick. Like, just that's what they see him as. That he basically said the Colts have admitted that they would have taken him at 4 if Anthony Richardson was not on the board. And I don't know about this one, but if the Ravens had not gotten a deal done with Lamar Jackson, they were going to take him at 22. So I find it funny. I find it interesting. I find it kind of I don't think it's a huge story, but I don't know exactly what we're solving here. but I think the injury part of this, if that is how you do the evaluation, same with Tajay Spears, same with Caleb Farley, same with Jeffrey Simmons, it can work both directions. It can be why a player falls to you and you get a great player, Jeffrey Simmons. It can be why a player falls to you and you end up with a guy who's on the IR like multiple times, Caleb Farley.
Not this year, though. Year 3, Caleb Farley's coming.
Oh, you are you back on the?
Oh, I've been on the train. I've already
Okay.
talked about year 3, C for Caleb, 3rd letter of the alphabet. He wears the number 3. Chris
Science.
Harris also starts with the C. Like, I'm all in.
So
Year 3, Caleb Farley's coming.
So science is
Yep.
why Caleb Farley's going to have a great year.
Signs matter.
Either way, Mel is. I will also say this about Mel is arguably the nicest human being in the history of sports media.
Someone get that man a microphone though for his computer.
You want to know another little nugget about Mel, and I hate to do this because I love him so much. Does not have a cell phone.
What?
You cannot. Like I know his home number and I know his email because I work with him, and I can talk to his wife, but you cannot text him. You cannot. He has no cell phone. Does not own a cell phone.
My mind is blown by that fact. So, dude, for him to get sources, is it just all email? So, like, if he got hacked, you can find out everything you need to know, right?
I think he does a lot of I think there's a lot of phone calls. And he sees
At
a lot
home.
He sees, yes, I know. He sees a lot of people in person as well. There's always people walking around the mothership up there in Bristol as well. Like, he's got a ton of stories. He told some really interesting stories about having information from GMs that told them they were going to pick a guy. And he's like, I can never use that information on the air because then I'll never get it again. But I use it to maybe adjust some grades every now and then. I'm like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. So, yeah. We had a lot of fun talking with him about grading versus mocking, and then a lot of Titan stuff. Talked about Jalen Duncan a lot. Talked about Dowell as well. Talked about Tajay Spears. So if you want to listen to that full interview, out Friday morning, like 40 minutes of Mel Kiper, which, Zach, is maybe 4.5 minutes of me and Steve Cavendish. It's probably 37 minutes of Mel Kiper.
You got my attention now.
Touche. Seekers Beverages, Kingston Group, we love you guys for supporting us. And hey, got a little Jasper's plug in there too. So check that out. All right. Bluegrass as well up there in Hendersonville. So if you're north side of town, make sure you swing by Bluegrass and check them out. All right. So defensive-minded coaches. Alex Smith was on his radio show on Sirius XM. I do not have the quote. Do you have the quote in front of you? I don't have it in front of me.
Actually, I do.
Why don't you go ahead?
What he said.
Go ahead and read it for everybody.
This was via JoeBucksFan.com. But it was Smith recently shared some of his thoughts on SiriusXM NFL Radio. There is a different mentality for my career when you play for an offensive head coach that wants to light up the scoreboard and outscore the opponent. Smith said there's a different mentality you have, especially as a young quarterback versus a defensive head coach, when really the coach's mentality is, hey, don't screw up. Don't turn the ball over. Don't put us in a bad situation. That's a huge difference in mentality and a mindset for a young quarterback, especially if it's a bit of a rocky start. It was more than a bit rocky to start for Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, and this is what he had to say on that. Robert Saleh, is it Saleh? Saleh? Saleh?
Saleh.
Saleh. Okay.
Robert Saleh.
I don't know why I had a brain fart there. Robert Saleh, you're a great defensive mind and coordinator, but like you have no idea how to develop a quarterback, Smith said. The coordinator you hired never called plays, so that's a completely different animal. And as much as you think you're prepared to handle that development of a young kid, you're just not.
Lots to digest in that quote. First of all, I appreciate the candor from Alex Smith. I find that to be good media. Whether he's right or wrong, we're about to discuss, but I appreciate it. I feel like you have a far stronger take about this than I do. I find some kernels of truth in there that are very interesting, especially as it pertains to Mike Vrabel. But I think you have a much stronger opinion about whether or not this is real or not.
It's this overarching thought that defensive-minded head coaches are not good for rookie quarterbacks. And this is a prevailing thought because they're not from the offensive side of the ball, so they don't know anything and blah, blah, blah. I'd like to just go ahead and just do a quick debunking if I could. Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, Harbaugh, Lamar, and Joe Flacco, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Bill Cowher, Big Ben, Jim Schwartz, Matt Stafford, Ron Rivera, Cam Newton, Mike Smith, Matt Ryan, Jim Mora, Peyton Manning, Marty Schottenheimer, Breeze, and Rivers. And then, of course, you have like Chuck Pagano got Andrew Luck, but that's, anybody could have done anything with that. And then on the flip side, you have like Baker Mayfield had Hugh Jackson. Sam Darnold, he started with Todd Bowles in year 1, but they went out and got Adam Gase specifically for his development. That failed. Jake Locker and Mike Munchak. Tim Tebow and Josh McDaniels, EJ Manuel and Doug Marrone.
Wait, can we just pause for a second on Josh McDaniels and Tim Tebow?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, continue. That's all I wanted.
Matt Nagy had Trubisky and Fields. Dwayne Haskins was with John Gruden. Daniel Jones has had both throughout his career, and it took Brian Daboll, his third head coach, to get anything out of him. And then Trey Lance, is he going to be any good? We don't know. And he's got one of the best offensive-minded head coaches. What it comes down to for me is that a lot of this is just on the quarterback evaluation process.
Yep.
And a lot of it is on the quarterback itself. Like, did Johnny Manziel not pan out because Mike Pettin was his head coach, or because he was a shitty person and he was a shitty NFL quarterback? Let's be realistic here. Some of these situations are entirely different, and much like the Will Levis situation, need context.
Yes, a lot of context. I think Trubisky, by the way, and Sam Darnold just aren't good enough with coaches that aren't good enough. I'm okay with it. And I just jotted this down, and this was just while you were talking. Like, first of all, Mike Tomlin, you could also put Mike Tomlin in there with Ben Roethlisberger as well, and now Cody Pickett. We'll see what happens. But it's about
developing, right? So, he didn't really develop Big Ben. I mean, Bill Cowher gets that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But really, it's because Bruce Arians and was there on staff. And, what's the guy that was a real dickhead?
I'm drawing Mike
Haley. Todd Haley. Todd Haley.
It was a real dickhead. Now, here's another one for you. Isn't Brandon Staley all defense? That's like his baby? And
but like
Justin Herbert's been pretty good.
I think Justin Herbert could be better. Like, isn't that why Joe Lombardi got fired? Because he kind of like.
Right, but that's not because Brandon Staley's job.
But it was also Anthony Lynn's first year was Justin Herbert, right?
But only for 1 year. They only overlapped, I think, for the 1 year. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's the second year quarterback. My point is that's a Justin Herbert thing. It's not an offensive or defensive minded coach
that's
thing.
what I'm saying. I agree with that.
Justin Herbert,
I'm saying the same thing. Is like, to me, Justin Herbert is good despite his quarterback or despite his head coach and despite his offensive coordinator that sucked as well.
To me, this is where two things are true. One of my favorite things in sports talk. Two things are true. One is that one size of this argument does not fit all. You cannot just say that every defensive-minded coach is bad for quarterbacks and that they're all, hypersensitive to a rookie that asks them to do nothing and plays super conservatively, and that every offensive-minded coach is great for quarterback development. That, to your point, that's just not true. It's just not true. The quality of the coach and the quarterback are really what drives that. The second thing that's true is that Mike Vrabel is a conservative, defensive-minded head coach who wants his quarterback to play safe within the confines of the offense and not turn the ball over, whether that's Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis.
Right, but isn't that a good thing for a rookie? Like, if you got a rookie, like, I think about Tom Brady and how he was brought up. Basically, he wasn't the great quarterback that he was at the beginning of his few years. He was being carried by the defense, right? And then he turned into and developed over time with the same head coach, with a good offensive staff, turned into the Tom Brady that we all know and sometimes hate. And to me, that it's all about the other staff. If you're a defensive-minded head coach, it's about your staff that you have in place. And all the Titans have done this offseason is bring in as many different people as possible to help with the offense and to help specifically. Like, I bet Will Levis and Pat are going to be like, right there, buddies. They're just going to be like
Yeah.
attached at the hip throughout the whole situation.
I would love to see some data on offensive-minded head coaches and defensive-minded head coaches with a rookie quarterback pass-run ratio. Because I think one of the things that Alex Smith is saying there is, well, we just got to score. And I would argue, like, if you have the quarterback capable of doing that, Joe Burrow as a rookie, let's say hypothetically, with Zach Taylor,
aka not Alex Smith,
then you can do that. You can just kind of go. Like I feel like if you're a good coach, you have to know the limits of your players. Like you have to know the limits of Cody Pickett, or in this case, Will Levis, or whoever. Like I'll be interested to see what Atlanta does, because Atlanta's got a ton of weapons, offensive-minded head coach, not a rookie quarterback, but a second-year quarterback with very little experience, basically a rookie third-round pick. I'm going to be curious to see. Like they're going to run the ball like crazy. I think Atlanta's going to be better than people think. They're on the Titans' schedule. I think in a good spot for the Titans to get them coming off the bye. But what do they look like in terms of a run-pass ratio? And is that considered more conservative versus a defensive coach? I think the key is, are you putting what you just said? Are you delegating like a CEO, like a leader, like someone who's got a culture that he is responsible for, where you've got 150 people you have to make sure they're all doing the same thing, the same way, in the right direction? And if you're Vrabel, sure, on 4th and 1, if the metrics say you go for it, sure, maybe he goes for it. But if the metrics say on 3rd and 7 he needs to run the ball and play it safe, maybe he does that because Will Levis is a rookie and he happens to be in the game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not responsible for developing the guy. Like, does that make sense? Like, you can be conservative or go for it in a specific moment, and that has nothing to do with whether or not you've developed the guy or your staff has developed the guy at all. So there's also a mentality that Alex is talking about, and we know Vrabel's mentality is physical, conservative style football. But in moments, he's shown us that he doesn't mind going for it when the metrics say go for it.
I mean, I look at it this way. You talk about delegating. I think that Vrabel does a lot of that. I think he's involved in a lot of rooms because he is a great football mind. He is a smart guy. That's kind of what you notice about defensive-minded head coaches. Like, to me, they know the X's and O's and the ins and outs and the gamesmanship a lot better, I feel like, than offensive-minded head coaches. Now, it's not to say the offensive-minded head coaches aren't as good or anything, because, I mean, that's obviously, it doesn't really matter what you are. It matters if you're just a good coach. It doesn't matter if you're a good coach on the offense or the defense. It just matters if you're a good coach. But it's like, I look at, these names, Bill Belichick, Bill Cowher, even to a degree, Jim Schwartz, Sean McDermott. These are all guys that are pretty intricately involved, but have developed people that also become intricately involved in the offense. And even though they're from the defensive side of things, so like everybody talks about Will Levis landing in the best possible spot he can land on. Like any article, or you ask any analyst, you ask any pundit, they all say the same thing. Will Levis and the Titans are a match made in heaven. And one of those reasons is Mike Vrabel, who is a defensive-minded head coach. Like, that should not be overlooked in this kind of a discussion.
He's a great teacher and leader and defensive mind. So perfect example of this is the throw we talked about on Monday, where he makes sort of Will Levis makes sort of a smash corner route throw to Josh Wiley right before the defender gets there. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, that was a really nice play. And I think what I said on the show on Monday was, but Vrabel clearly took a chance or took an opportunity there to coach. And I think they talked about it in the press conference afterward, that he took a moment there, and I could see him doing like this motion, like he was kind of motioning. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. If you're listening on the podcast, he sort of like does this arch motion where he's sort of directing the flight of the ball. And it was very clear his job is not to teach Will Levis how to make that throw. That's Pat O'Hara's job. That's Tim Kelly's job. His job is to say to Will Levis, look, safety's going to make that play if you throw it like that again, right? Like he can see the thing happening and can say, look, I need you to put it on more of a rope, let's say. But just because you're a defensive-minded head coach doesn't mean your job is then to teach the actual footwork and the arm slot and everything. Like that's the other guy's job. And one final note on delegation, Nick Saban is the most famous about this. What if you work for Nick Saban in the facility, he holds like the janitor to the same standard as he holds as like offensive coordinator. But what he does, he has an extremely high threshold of trust. But when he does trust you and you've earned your spot on his staff or in his building, he lets you do your job. Like, that's it. Like, I can see Vrabel functioning very similarly. Belichick the same way. There's a very high threshold to earn your way in here. But once you're here, I'm not going to get in your way. It's your job. Go do your job.
Well, I mean, that was obviously, and maybe that's a little bit of a problem too, to a lesser degree, because that's what apparently happened with Keith Carter and what, and Todd Downey is like, he stepped back way too far.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Either way, I thought that was really interesting. Good clip by you. Good conversation that you found there. And one size doesn't fit all here. Vrabel, I'm okay with them being conservative as a team, as a philosophy, and with a rookie quarterback. It doesn't mean that he's not also trying to push and evolve the offense with Tim Kelly and, allow some people to do some work. So, okay. Knoxville, Tennessee, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in the Kingston Group, by the way.
Knoxville, Tennessee is?
Yep. The whole city.
They got the whole city.
The whole city brought to you by Sinkers and Kingston Group. They don't know that yet, but that's what's happening. So Danny White, athletic director for the University of Tennessee, tweets out like the video, and it's, if you don't know the area around Neyland Stadium, there's, of course, it drops way back down to the river. There is a little interstate loop back down there. There's like a one branded old restaurant that people love for some reason, and then like a bunch of parking garages. And but like when I was there in 2000 to 2004, all the little areas around Neyland Stadium were just like campus that weren't like fun places to party. Like, and now they've sort of started implementing more areas around the stadium on the campus side. Well, as it turns out, Zach, there's going to be a giant entertainment district, hotels, rooftop, open air stuff that I'm assuming will function very similarly to the area around Nissan Stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? Like, this is I would assume, I don't know the surrounding areas directly connected to the stadium of every college team, but I would assume this is the first of its kind almost, where it's all right there. It's an entertainment district where you would assume there's also going to be lodging and all that kind of stuff. I can't think of one that I know when I see shots and everything, but like, this is big because if you think about it, you're taking away technically tailgating spots and shifting your tailgate kind of elsewhere. Because like if you did this at the Grove, there's no way the Grove alumni would allow it. Like I feel like the Ole Miss would be like, no, well, you're not taking away the Grove.
So it's interesting you bring the Ole Miss up. The Grove is kind of like what they're trying to replicate, but like down on the river. Like that's kind of what they're trying to build, because there is not, and I'll say that like there is not a big, large green space near Neyland Stadium.
Yeah,
it's a lot of like parking garages, roads, parking lots for campus. You got the University Center right there. You got Circle Park on one side, and then you got the hill on the other side. There's just not a good like big grassy place. Circle Park's like really the only place, but that's like up the hill. So I think what they're trying to do is to kind of create an urbanish version of the Grove. Now I will say this. I think like Louisville has a pretty good little, like, it's not a district, but it's right down. Their stadium is like got a lot of cool stuff around it. It's right down there by Churchill Downs, the baseball stadium for Louisville, University of Louisville. Kentucky's football stadium is sort of in an urban area where there's a lot of stuff going on around that stadium. Vanderbilt, if it was a football team, would have a lot of stuff around it in theory. So. Yeah. Because West End, if it was a big time program, like it's not like LSU. When you go to LSU Stadium,
there's really not like it's there, but it's not there because there's there's that McDonald's that's there, or is it a Wendy's or something? Wendy's, yeah. And I think a Redlands Steakhouse. Like I don't know, like if it was a big time SEC, be pretty big. This seems very dangerous.
Okay, I want you to expand on that. The only point on Vanderbilt is if it was one of the big boys, like if it was 100, like it would be in a very perfect place. I guarantee you West End would be much bigger and more party. There'd be more bars and restaurants and shops, and like there'd be a strip there, and like it's because it's Vanderbilt that hasn't turned into a big party district. That would be my guess. Because if you go to LSU Stadium, It is just like in a big parking lot in a flat spot in the middle of Louisiana with like a couple of restaurants around it, but like it's just kind of there. Like there's not campus is there, but it's just kind of flat and it's just Baton Rouge. Like the food's amazing, but there's not like a district. I wanted. What do you mean by dangerous? Like you think just too many kids partying underage?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of bank accounts are going to get drained. A lot of it feels like your insurance policies are going to be through the roof if you're in there because you have to have your umbrella policies and stuff. Like, I don't know, like if this is the future of college, where you're basically turning these stadiums and the surrounding area into almost pro stadiums, how long before what's the next step? New stadium and is coming from the taxpayers and it's going to be more modern. Like it's awesome. First off, like I'm more apt now when this thing is built and done to go to travel to boring ass Knoxville, with one of the worst cities in the state.
It is a top 10 tourist city in the United States right now.
Yeah,
and I'm not one to defend it, but it is one of the fastest growing tourism destinations in the Southeast. I don't know
what they're visiting. Like, 'cause there's nothing.
Well, it's changed a lot. There's a lot of outdoor stuff. You got the Smoky Mountains, you got Pigeon Forge, you got Gatlinburg, but you also have like.
So you guys are claiming Gatlinburg tourism over in Knoxville.
I don't know. I just saw the numbers that Danny White tweeted out and then saw some independent reports as well that said like for some reason Knoxville is like one of the most visited places in the Southeast. It has changed a ton since I was in college in 2004. Like there was nothing to do there. Now the old city is incredibly built up. You got all kinds of restaurants and stuff that's downtown. It's kind of expanded out, much like as Nashville has. But you have more outdoor stuff to do in Knoxville than you do in Nashville. Like there's nothing here relative to what Knoxville's got to offer, which is a bunch of lakes, the mountains, all kinds of fun stuff that we're taking our kids up for their first game this year with a couple of friends, and we're staying in the cabins in the mountains, and then we're going to do the mountains on like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we're going to come in on Saturday and do the game. And so that what I think is happening is there's not a lot of charm around Neyland Stadium, and there's a lot of charm around other stadiums in the SEC, South Carolina, a lot of like the trains right there. You mentioned the Grove. There's a lot of part of what makes college football stadiums great is like the charming uniqueness around the stadium. But Neyland doesn't really have that. They've got the river, and so they're going to try to build sort of the river and the stadium together with this like district. If that makes sense.
It'll be interesting to see. I think this won't be the last time you hear of a college doing this, obviously.
I totally agree. I'm curious. Let me ask you this. Would you be more apt to do this? Because Knoxville's a pretty large city relative to most college towns. Would you be more apt to do this at a place like LSU where you're going to get 100,000 people, but there's like tons of space to build like an actual district, kind of like what they've got in Wrigleyville or for the Braves, right? I haven't been to the Braves stadium, so I don't know what it feels like. But or are you more likely to do it like I've been to? If you've never been to Austin to the Texas Stadium, it is like right downtown, super urban, like next to the interstate, very kind of party centric time. Does it make more sense to do it in a party town in a big city or in a small town where you can build a lot of stuff and bring a bunch of people in?
Oh man,
like where do you think this starts becoming a trend?
I think the next one is. Like you can't do it in Austin, right? Because I mean, like you said, smack dab downtown. There's not really a good place. And what you're right. Everybody leaves the stadium and goes to all the bars in just the immediate area anyway. So it's almost like you kind of got it. You almost kind of like you got it.
Right. Like Athens, you just like walk over the tracks and you get to like all the strips where all the bars and restaurants are, and like that's what you want to do. You don't want to go anywhere.
Memphis would be a great place. Liberty Field would have the. Not only could you keep your tailgating area, but you have all kinds of space around there across the road and everything. That would be a perfect place to do it. That's a smaller school. I think that it's going to depend on the city too. So like, I've never been to Columbus. So have you ever been to Columbus or Ann Arbor? I'm not sure how those stadiums map out, but those could be like, I feel like it's going to be a trickle down effect. and it's going to go big schools like UT, big name schools, and trickle down.
I think it's big name schools that are in urban settings because Columbus is the biggest city in Ohio. I don't think you want to take away the charm from like Baton Rouge and the tailgating and the tents and everything and like sort of the crawfish boil and all that stuff. But like Tennessee is doing it in a spot between the stadium and the river that is completely charmless. It is just roads and parking garages. And you can't really do anything else with that space. You can't put a big park down there and just like say, hey, come and set up your tents. There's no place to put cars. So what I think they're doing is they're kind of maximizing a worthless strip of land by putting a big giant party rooftop, essentially, that is like right there next to the stadium so you can get in and out of the stadium real fast, right? Because what happens is you go to G20 parking garage, which is right next to the stadium, and you just sit in your car. And it just smells like, asphalt, White Claw and fucking gasoline. Like, it's just, like, there's no charm to it at all. And so I think they're trying to build, like, all those renderings you see of Nissan Stadium, all the different bars around the new Nissan Stadium. I think they're going to try to do that on that rooftop strip that makes it look appealing and fun, especially for young people who I think are fucking obnoxious. So
right.
I'm going with my kids. We're going to go sit and we're going to go tailgate like in a tiny little grass park somewhere near like the humanities building or something. That's what we're going to do. Also, by the way, you can mark the tape on this because my wife and her best friend, and we're taking our 4 kids, the husbands, we're doing the whole thing. There's 8 of us. We're taking our 4 kids to all Tennessee grads, all 4 of us, taking our 4 kids to the Texas A&M game. Guaranteed defeat for the Volunteers. If you want a guaranteed win, Texas A&M I guarantee you they beat Tennessee on the road on October 14th. Guaranteed.
Wow, you're that bad luck, huh?
Because, no, our 4 children have to walk out of there disappointed. It is a rite of passage for Tennessee Volunteers fans.
Gotcha.
It's just they have to be disappointed. That's the nature of the game. What else we got? Anything? Sinkers, Kingston Group, Stack in the Inbox. Thanks to all you guys for hanging out. Jason Stoney, D Good, Donnie. Appreciate all you guys for chiming in. Football and other F words. Lamestream Sports with Mel Kiper. We got Gold Standard talking Preds. Maybe there's a move coming at head coach. Who knows? Nashville SC, of course, Club and Country. You got that show. You got the Paul Kaharski podcast. You got Fringe Element covering SEC football. You got all kinds of stuff. So make sure you check all of that out. We do appreciate all of your support. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group. Remember those names. For Zach, I am Braden. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.